Alright, Nightfall 6 at Old Tucson Studios. By Nightfall 5, it became pretty clear that Nightfall was starting to take off. Then in April of 1995, the fire broke out. This put a hold on future Nightfall events for 2 whole years. In the process, which I have already discussed, was the rebuilding of Old Tucson Studios. In 1997 marked the return to Old Tucson Studios Nightfall, with Nightfall 6. Again, this is another year that I do not have a lot of information. If anyone out there in internet land has something they'd like to share, anything that they can remember from Nightfall 6, be my guest. But what I'm going to try to do as best as I can is explain the storyline and some of the things involved in Nightfall 6, despite the lack of fancy video that I have. This was the year that introduced the storyline with Michael Solomonson. With Old Tucson Studios reopened, Nightfall changed from a prospering town slowly being consumed by the Goulliard Asylum to a ghost town, with the Goulliard Asylum the head office. I believe for Nightfall 6, their haunted attraction became Dr. Hyde's laboratory, and I believe it was near the vicinity of the High Chaparral. But Old Tucson would slowly start moving away from the High Chaparral set for their haunted attractions. I believe also there was probably a haunted train ride, and there were 2 stunt shows developing the storyline. The bloodletting show transformed into a separate entity, I believe, the first one being written by Solomonson for Nightfall 6. These stories more or less still focused on the idea of the asylum, I believe. So Nightfall 6 introduced 4 characters who wander into the town of Nightfall to their demise. First is Meg Taylor, a reporter who is visiting Nightfall for a story. Next is Judge Bailey, who is accompanied by Meg Taylor. Sheriff Brooks goes into the town of Nightfall looking for Meg Taylor and Judge Bailey. He meets up with a man named Brett Nathan, a bounty hunter who is after the reward for Dr. Jebediah Hyde. Now you can probably guess that these 4 individuals come to the town of Nightfall in the most inopportune time. Dr. Hyde is yet again creating another mindless creature lackey. First he decides to decapitate the inmate Crazy Ellen in order to use her head for the creature. Once Hyde stumbles upon the outsiders, he hangs Judge Bailey and uses his brain for the creature. Then confrontation ensues. Sheriff Brooks apparently battles it out with the creature and is inevitably torn apart by it. And in the end, it is up to Brett Nathan and Meg Taylor to stop the evils of Dr. Jebediah Hyde, which would continue with Nightfall 7. And that pretty much sums up Nightfall 6 with the information that I have. So I guess that about wraps it up, and we'll move on to the next episode talking about Nightfall 7 at Old Tucson Studios.